Hi, Dirk. Welcome to How Things Connect podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Stephanie. Good. Thank you.
Excellent. So, we're very excited to have you as a guest today, and I'm very honored to have you here to
Mhm.
discuss human design. You're a
Mhm.
social anthropologist, and in your own words, you've described human design as the most neutral and liberating lens available to see how each individual can live in accordance with the intelligence of life.
Did I say
You
that?
did say that. You did say that. And how is
I've
that?
put it in many ways, actually. I've done many presentations of design, and each time something different comes out. But yeah, I think, well, actually, as a social anthropologist, when I was at university, we were basically trained in anthropological theory. So anthropological theory is like, what lens do you use to look at the the phenomenon of being human, no? Which is obviously, we express ourselves in so many ways: culturally, socially, economically, legally, kinship wise, you name it, and the way that we do so is very different depending on what part of the world we're from, what tribe we belong to, or all that kind of stuff. And these anthropological lenses, they've somehow gone, yeah, like deeper and deeper inside of who we are. We started off by looking really like, oh, they're over there and we're over here, and they're different from us. But the more that these lenses evolved, the deeper we've been going into, okay, what do we actually have in common? You know, what do we share? And um, in that sense, human design is basically the energetic code that we all share. And now, obviously, I'm going to limit myself to talking about human design just regarding humans, no, because human design is much more vast than just looking at human beings. We can look at many other life forms, but when we look at human beings, it is just like, okay, what is the energetic code or the energetic wiring that we all have in common? So it talks profoundly about our human nature, you know, and how we are hardwired. We all, you know, we all think, we all express ourselves, we all have a sense of I, we all have a sense of identity, we all emote, we all have feelings, we all have, you know, a need to bond, and on and on and on. And that's the beauty of what you look at when you see a human design body graph. Like, I find it interesting because many people who come in touch with human design, they immediately are looking into what their design is, or what, but very little, like, there's not enough time spent in just being and just marveling about the fact that actually you're seeing laid out the human energetic code. It's not something that, I mean, there's an enormous amount of pressure actually in universities and all that kind of, like, especially in cognitive anthropology, where a lot of disciplines actually come together in looking for that code, and knowing, like, what is the coding that we all share. So that's what you see in a human design body graph. And then, obviously, it goes further than that. And when you there's aspects of design, because human design is basically a coming together of two different worlds, There is a whole scientific world about genetics and quantum physics and astrophysics and chemistry and biology, and And then at the same time, there is elements from a very multicultural background. So there's it's which is also the beauty of the lens. No, there's things in there that come from the Hindus, and then there's things in
Mhm.
there come from the Chinese, and then there's stuff in there that has been adopted by all tribal cultures all over the world. You know, like the medicine wheel, for example. There's things that are in there that come from Judeo-Hebrew tradition.
Mhm.
So that then there is Vedic astrology. There is aspects of Babylonian, sidereal astrology. So there are so many multicultural different aspects to design that actually, um, yeah, they make up a very important part of what that system actually is, because it goes, you know, we have a basically science has a problem. And one of the problems of science is that it's not really, we don't grasp what consciousness is. It's not measurable. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know how to look at it. And but we know a lot of other stuff. So in design, we see, like when you look at a body graph, I mean, that's a body graph there behind me, for example.
Mhm.
When you look at a body graph, you see like, okay, this is all of the energetic wiring of a human being. And there are very prominent social scientists, for example, Brene Brown, or, you know, there's many other people, you know, who basically are pointing out nowadays, like, yeah, you know, humans, we're hardwired to belong, and humans, we're hardwired to empathize, and we are hardwired to be sensitive, and we're hardwired to think logically or abstractly, and you just go on and on and on, because there's a lot of hardwiring. It's all laid out there, and that in and of itself is the scientific aspect of it. But the other aspect of it that comes basically from mystical traditions says that that stuff is an expression of consciousness. So when you look at human design, you actually see, and that's something that pervades the whole cosmology of design, you basically see how consciousness moves through space and time and incarnates. And it incarnates in very different forms, because everything in some way or another carries a consciousness or a soul. You know, there is a soul in every leaf of grass, the same way that there is a soul in a human being. And um, depending on the form that the consciousness incarnates in, it expresses itself in a certain way. So
Mhm.
when you provide your personal birth information, you actually get to see how consciousness expresses itself through your form. And the suggestion then is, well, there is a certain intelligence that manages that form. There's a certain intelligence inherent in a person's life spark. And that intelligence is different depending on the life spark. My intelligence is different from your intelligence. So,
Mhm.
you know, so it describes like, okay, Stephanie, like, you know, this is your design, and the intelligence, which in design is called strategy and authority. It's basically the way that it's summarized. The intelligence of your life form is about responding and is about relying on, you know, your gut. And in some way or another, given that you have a defined splenic system, there is this kind of like, okay, I
Mhm.
can rely on some of my like, don't like, primary survival intelligence. And the recognition of that allows you to trust your life, get your mind out of the way from managing your life, and get your mind into the right position of being able to be in wonder of what your life is. So that's what it offers. You know, it's basically it shows every single person how to trust life and how to learn to observe one's mind with more of a focus in a way, like seeing
Yes.
more clearly, okay, this is how it works.
Yes, and if I may,
Yeah.
you know, based on what you were saying earlier, it's fascinating because clearly human design is such an interesting system.
Mhm,
And, you know, we can talk about purely, like you said, the wonderment of even having this code, having
mhm,
laid out for us by the founder of human design, or the person who actually put all of this together, who is, excuse me, the late Ra Ra Uru Hu.
mhm, mhm,
And that alone is fascinating because, like you said, what is science about anyway? It's about, okay, let's really find what are the building blocks, how do things work, how do we navigate and understand how life works,
mhm,
whether it's from a biological, from physics, from from chemistry, from biochemistry, from neurobiology, like all of these different aspects. And yet here is actually a system that is almost in some ways a precursor, because it's looking at consciousness and coming at it from consciousness being the encompassing and the sort of the higher level of looking at this and the higher way of entering the exploration of these questions,
mhm,
and then laying out for you and saying, by the way, this is why people behave this way and act that way, etc. To
mhm,
take this concept, which is just even just fascinating just to meditate on that, but to bring it down, um, you know, into the realm of day-to-day practicality, what the work, for example, that I've done with you, and you know, you've done my readings, you've been an amazing um, expert at actually being able to explain my human design based on my birth time, date, place, right? As you would in astrology. But again, we're talking about human design, not astrology here. And able to say pretty much this is your how-to manual, right? To put it in very simple terms. So I always felt that the practical value, and that's just one value, but like something that people can really grasp, is having a manual, a how-to manual for who you are, is incredibly useful because it's saying, guess what? You're designed this way. So your strategy in your specific unique design as a human being, and there's only one of you, right? Because there's only one person with exactly all these codes, exactly done this way, right? That you are therefore life, and how you meet life in your strategy. There is actually an easier way so that you're not bumping against yourself in a way that is not helpful for you trying to fulfill yourself in this life.
mhm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
Yeah.
um,
If I mean, I can use my own example. If I mean, I'm happy to share
yeah,
that, right? So in human design, from my basic level of understanding, you know, there's many way within this code. There's many ways of categorizing people and kind of saying, okay, you're this and that. So there are generators, manifestors, reflectors, projectors, and also manifesting generators.
mhm,
You know, and then there's the next um, aspect that we usually quote in terms of, you know, like some people say, for example, oh yeah, I'm a Sagittarius with a Gemini rising and a Aquarius moon or something like that, right? But we say, like in human design, I am, for example, a generator with has a 4-6 profile, and you are a reflector with a 4-6 profile.
mhm.
So you have said to me, okay, well, we are both 4-6s. As an example, could you share what that means? 4-6, for example, as profile number. And then, or we can talk about the differences between reflectors and generators and the other types.
It's not like I don't want to get into this question because it's obviously a very practical question, can be useful. But what my main concern is,
Mm-hmm.
is what you just said, in the sense of like, we're all navigating through space and time at an enormous speed. And it is good to have signposts while we are navigating. So every time, for example, I have an open solar plexus, which has to do with emotions. You have an open solar plexus, which has to do, like, is the center that regulates emotions. So we're both receptive to emotional energy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know since I know this, I know that I have a mental defense built there. And my mental defense built there is I try to avoid confronting to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
So now obviously I'm a reflector, so I have almost all, like I have all of the centers open. So, okay, it goes way further than that, but just let's stick to this one. And every time I notice in my life that there is some kind of resistance that I don't, like, I don't feel good about, there's something, I know that it can help me to go and look inside. Okay, what am I avoiding really? What is it that I'm avoiding? What am I avoiding to feel? What am I avoiding to touch upon? There's something I'm avoiding. And the moment that I get access to it, okay, everything flows again. So yes, there are different terminologies, like, there's type, so there's reflector, generator, manifesting generator, projector, manifester, all these things. And it says something really important about your life force. Your life force is designed as a generator to, like, you're here for satisfaction. So you're here to do something that, it's like your form enjoys the fact of being displaying itself in an energetic way that has a satisfying result to you. It's having fun doing what you're doing. And as a reflector, the situation is not really about the doing so much. It's more about the experience and being surprised in the experience and recognizing what is different. So there is a totally different stance in life. But I don't consider myself a reflector.
And why is that?
I try not to consider myself, like, I don't go, like, I pay attention to that. It's like I am not that. Human design is the expression of consciousness. So in my personal journey, okay, I try to keep in mind that what I am is actually consciousness. My being, my true being, is silence. There is nothing else. There is just awareness. There is just watching. And that awareness expresses itself through a body-mind construct, okay, that obeys certain laws of nature. Those laws of nature that are described in design, yeah, they are like, oh, this is a reflector construct, everything is open, I have a 4-6 profile, you have a 4-6 profile. So, whenever I have the opportunity, when somebody knocks on my door, I will try, like, there is something from me that externalizes itself to you. That's what happens through that fourth line. The fourth line is an externalization of something that I have seen in my awareness, came to see in my awareness, want to share, whatever it is called out. And at the same time, the sixth line body is just like, apart from now sharing with you my perspective on something, I keep on, on my life journey of, okay, how do I align myself with myself? Like, how do I bring my body into integrity with whatever it is that I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the sixth line is my life. Okay, it takes place there. The fourth line is what, is basically my outer authority. It's like I get to share with you or to externalize whatever I see. But I think it's really important. I see so many people in Facebook nowadays. Oh, I have this and I am that and da 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 and da da da. And I'm like, no, this is not what human design is about. Human design is not about that. Human design is here as basically is in the words of Ra, is for the enhancement of consciousness.
Mm.
It is not here to start playing games, like, also you're a reflector and you must have to open this and it's because of your define that I feel like this, and you're a 3-6, which would like, what kind of boyfriend should I find if I'm a generator? It's like, ooh, oh my God, lost, lost, lost.
Thank you for pointing out those interesting pitfalls. But I mean, I would love for you to talk about then, because clearly human design is very, is very profound in terms of how do we experience, these are signposts of how we experience consciousness.
Yeah.
And how we live that. And so what would you say, how has that helped you do exactly what you just said? Like, what is that like? And how can we elevate from sort of a very baseline, which, by the way, I have to say, there's something interesting about that too. So it's, there is something that is fun and engages one in, so that in a way it engages our conditioned mind, you could say, into interacting with this whole concept. So maybe I'm completely off base, but it also seems like that is, although that's not the be all end all, that is where people often start to engage with this, with human design.
Yeah, but better to start in the right way.
Okay, how would we do that? How would we do that?
Better to start recognizing that this is something that can help me observe.
Okay.
So if I observe and I observe, like, oh wow, it's like I didn't even see that I was a reflector when I came in. Like, it took me time
Yes.
to recognize, like, oh wow, I'm really open. And
Same
it
here.
never stops. It's not like, it's not this kind of thing that, oh, I get it now. No, I don't. I keep on experimenting, so to speak, seeing, like, oh wow, I really,
Mm-hmm.
really open, and my perspective has mainly been to learn about what it is to be human, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what it is to be so open. Now, it obviously helps a lot to, like, I come from a family where we're all a different type. So, in the
And
big
just,
in my childhood, for example, my relationship with my brother was arduous, to say the least. Okay, and then I, when it came into human design, I started discovering, like, my brother is a manifester. Oh, okay, that's why
mm-hmm.
this life force, you turn it the way you want, it has an impact on its environment. It has an impact on actually every member of our family. When he comes through the door, we all go like, okay, here he is. So, okay, and how do you address a manifester? It's not like it's a life force that has a certain, resistance in a way to even being asked. It's like, don't even talk about telling him something, but just asking him something is already like, doesn't like it. So he likes information. So I can inform about how it makes me feel. I can inform about what goes on. I can inform. And the moment I started informing, I started having a better relationship with my brother. Now my sister is a generator. Okay, she's an emotional generator. She's emotionally wired. So my sister has an intelligence that is all about feeling. So her intelligence, which is about feeling, is basically something that says like, well, she needs her time to feel things through. So, if I'm with her, there is this thing that says like, well, let's take our time, let's not rush, we'll see, I don't want to hurt your feelings, let's take, let's see how that go, how it sits with you tomorrow, and we can talk about it again. And she's somebody that needs to be asked, in contrast to my brother. So I'm like, oh, okay, like you get to see the life force of somebody and how it operates. It's like,
Right.
my brother is a giraffe. I don't want him to be an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
My sister is an elephant, and I treat her like an elephant. And I'm a monkey, and this is how monkeys behave. So it's, in that sense, it's like, okay, you get to recognize it. It's very helpful many times in your relationships, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
In the correct, one of the biggest issues that we have is that parents are not well equipped to mirror their children correctly. So that means that it's very easy to have a child and to see in your child, oh, you're just like me, or oh, you're so much like your dad, or just because of physical traits already. The genetics make that, well, you look like your mom, what to do, or you look like your dad. But there is also a, like, we are like this in this family, or so I'm not necessarily mirroring you correctly. I'm actually throwing something on you that maybe you are not. And I know very well about what I'm speaking about. I'm a reflector. It's very, 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 very challenging in a way for somebody to recognize a reflector. It's very easy to say like, oh, okay, that must be a generator, or here comes a manifester, or for sure she's a projector. But a reflector is not that easy, because actually it's very easy to get caught up in the experience with a reflector. It's unavoidable. So human design is a tool that can provide correct mirroring to children. If you have a correct mirroring, if you are really seen by your parents in your upbringing for who you are, you build more self-confidence. You build more of your own life. You stand stronger with your feet in the floor. You have less neurosis. There's all kinds of benefits from being seen and appreciated and valued and addressed according to your specific sensitivities, like your idiosyncrasy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the same goes for any kind of relationship.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's the big value. The first relationship is the relationship with myself. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop expecting of being a super achiever, or I'm going to stop expecting I need to be there for others, because I start seeing in my chart, well, this is the way that I function. And it's not what I have in mind. And then the same goes with relationships. It's like, okay, this is the nature of my friend, or of my parent, or brother, or sister, or girlfriend, or boyfriend, or whatever it is. So, and these things, there are certain things that there are certain matches that are easier, and there are certain matches that are more, well, it's not like easier or not easier. It's easy, let's put it like this. It's easy to find the commonalities. It's easy to find like, well, we match in certain ways. We match. There's a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily, we're very different, but we're both four sixes. So we both like to externalize something. We both have something about, let's go and sit down, we have a cup of coffee, we speak with each other, and I get to say what I see, and you tell me what you see. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
friendly, and it's nice, and we split the bill and we go home. That's like, no, that's nice. It's friendly. It's cool. Like,
It is. It is. But what you just described, Dirk, is so valuable, and it actually goes back to sort of the whole idea of, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's like, what kind of design do we come into this world with versus how we've been conditioned, right? So the conditioning can come from parental conditioning, societal conditioning, cultural conditioning. What I find fascinating and actually very inspiring aspect of human design is what you mentioned in the very beginning of this podcast, which is how it reflects and has references to so many cultures around the world, regardless of geography, religion, and whatnot. And
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
it's really, really beautiful. And I feel that that's something which a lot of people don't necessarily talk about, but it's actually the aspect that holds a little bit of a hint as to why human design is such a liberating way to look at life and to understand consciousness. It is, you know, what inspired me the most about human design, which I would love to share, is how essentially it looks at every single person. It doesn't matter where you come from, how successful, not successful you are considered in society, how much money you have, how little or lot of education that you have, whether you're a prince or a pauper. It basically says everybody who comes into this world has a particular design, and they, if they discover with their own design, either consciously or by accident, then you really find a way to self-fulfill, right? You find a way that you can really fully activate your potential in a way that is actually very practical. It isn't necessarily through mantra work or many of the other modalities that exist out there with meditation and all this. There's a wonderful modalities. This is one modality which I find very practical because it gives those signposts and guidelines. It's very much like, here it is. Now you could go against your design. I'll give you an example. If I remember you're saying to me, you're like, look, you're a 4-6, in the beginning of your life, stuff just doesn't work out, right? And if I had known that earlier in my life, I would treat it very differently. I would treat it like, oh, well, these are my years about accumulating experience and understanding and try to make sense of it, because ultimately my purpose is really to be a resource for people, right? For humanity. And then I wouldn't take it so seriously and I would stop comparing myself all the time. And that, I think, is also very helpful, because then we start saying, well, why am I not like so-and-so? Why is their life like this? And how come no matter how hard I work, no matter how good my intention is, it just doesn't turn out that way? Like, am I just unlucky? And then you go into this whole, spiral. But when you start to really have these guideposts, it really helps to live. And also one thing, and thank you very much for bringing that point up. And I'm sorry if I tried to oversimplify this, but when you're saying this is about understanding consciousness and living it, and it's in the interaction of these different consciousness through all these different various designs and all these types that we are, that it is in itself something that is so expansive, that is so beautiful, that is so not just useful and practical, but it is what actually allows us to evolve. And we can actually witness this if we are aware of it, which really is life enriching in that sense, and life affirming. And it actually generates a lot more compassion between people, within ourselves, and in terms of how we connect and how we view another person, another group, another society, etc. And to me, this seems like an extremely helpful way, or something that more people should know about, especially during this time. This time meaning where we're facing climate issues, social injustice. We've gone through over a year of COVID. We've gone COVID-19. We have been dealing with increased polarization in the world. And I would love to hear what you think about how human design applies to where we are in this time of our evolution in this ascension of humanity?
Yeah, the first thing that I totally agree with you is that given that it's a tool at service of consciousness, compassion towards oneself and others is what it's actually there for, no? Which are very beautiful moments in a way, and not necessarily so easy, where there is also, I think even the word compassion is not really well understood, but anyway. Like what you are asking is related to the fact that human design also talks, like sheds a larger perspective on how we evolve, how consciousness evolves. And we are moving slowly, but definitely into a breakdown of support systems, connectivity, like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, we are moving towards something that has to do with waking up to the fact that, like, your podcast is called Everything is Connected. But strangely enough, that awareness is only possible within each individual at a time. It's clear that on a socio-economical, like on that level, support structures are crumbling, no? They're not working anymore. The international agreements are not standing the way they stood. The corporations are crumbling, banking systems are crumbling, political organizations are crumbling. There is so much that is just like it's all falling into the whole card construction is basically falling in front of our eyes, which is very, very, very it's like, wow, like, and all of that structure has been built basically on a patriarchal model. So what has been governing it is the strategic mind. And we are right now in like, there is no doubt about it that there is no going back anymore. There is no coming new normality or coming back to what it was or whatever it is. This is only the beginning of this, boom, 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 brrr, boom. Everything goes down.
Mm-hmm.
How far it will go, we'll have to see. I don't have a crystal ball either, but these things, they go far. They go very far, because it goes all the way into religion. It's like, there goes the Vatican, and there goes this, and there goes that. It's like, wow, everything is really going out the window. And for the moment, that's where we're at. What we are going to, difficult to say, even though we know in design that we're going towards a shift in consciousness that is unimaginable to humans so far. So we'll have to see what it brings. It becomes clear that it's really important to be able to rely more and more and more on yourself. And that's what it's here for. It's here for that, to learn to rely on oneself. It's not like I have it for myself resolved. This relying on myself, I'm learning.
I think we all are. I think we all are. And there's this falls and is a part of really the resilience movements that have sprung up at the same time that it might be very challenging and feel very challenging, there's also something new that's coming and showing itself, and that's being born through this movement, right? This movement of life. I'm not talking about any kind of political movement. I'm not talking about those kinds of movements, but the planet and all of us in it also has its own design, so to speak, its innate design. Perhaps one could extrapolate and say, there's the conditioning, there's the personality of the planet, and then there's the actual design of Gaia, and which we are all part of, being part of Gaia, right? And being part of the planet. And that's actually yearning and expressing itself now, given where we are, as you know, in this particular moment in time. And that having this insight of human design actually really helps us in many ways to understand what's happening all around us, and actually gives more, in a way, can give more peace, because it's another way for us, however limited our experiences may be, in terms of interpreting what's going on.
My perspective is that the evolution, the future, so to speak, lays in moving away from the strategic mind.
Mm-hmm.
So the future lays in the hands of women. And if I say women, I'm just saying the feminine. The future lays in the hands of the feminine, and the feminine is receptive, and the feminine is surrendering to feelings, and is feeling for each other. It's like the future lays there. You know, you have to yield, maybe is the word, towards life. You know, strategy is like, I'm gonna conquer life, and we are in a day and age where it's becoming more and more and more clear, and it's gonna be more and more in our face, that there is no conquering of life. That is not possible. We're not here to conquer life. We're here to live, and that living is about surrendering to life. And you know, these things are. These things, they pervade everything. One of Google's biggest investments is in immortality, in how to conquer death. I mean, it's weird. It's like, wow, really? Like, you guys invest in that stuff? Interesting or not, for sure, there's a lot of interesting aspects there, but it's just the mindset. The mindset is this conquering mindset has brought us where we are now. And now it's time to let it go and to go with the other mindset.
I totally hear you, and I couldn't agree more. You know, you talk about the feminine, and I just want to be very clear. It's not about at all women, men, women against men, men. It's not about that. It's about the feminine as in an impulse, right? As in the principle that exists within all of us, whether you're, whichever gender identity you have, however you identify. It's about feelings, it's about emotions, it's about being receptive, it's about being receptive to what we're feeling from ourselves, first of all, because you can't even go anywhere unless you know how you're feeling. How does it feel in the body? What are these messages that we're constantly, this intelligence that we're constantly being sent, and where it's always being broadcast, but we're the ones who are not really listening. And
that's the essence of design. That's the essence of design. There's yin yang symbol. And the yin yang it represents life. There is no life without yin yang, you know, without.
That's right.
That's the essence of life. So,
that's right.
Okay, design shows how the yin has always suffered, because the yang went against it, the yang spit on it.
The domination, suppression of
The softness of the yin has been suffering under the aggression of the yang. And we are in a day and age where we have to recognize that the presence to the yin is a presence to an intelligence that makes life move. So the yang is just a presence. It's not an aggression. And basically,
Mhm.
that's what design explains in very much detail for every single human being on earth, is to trust in life.
Yes. And I feel that habitually, because we've all been conditioned, having lived in our modern
Yeah.
society, grown up, whatever, we've been conditioned so much by this patriarchy, by a very yang way of living. You know, we're always out there trying to be number one, always competitive. There's this conditioning that happens. And we have completely devalued that presence and that listening. And through a lot of spiritual movements that have had a tremendous revival in these last 50 years is the commonality is really, it doesn't even matter which modality we're talking about, is about love. And it's very specifically, what does that mean? It's actually about presence and listening
Yeah.
and our ability to connect, you know, to the intelligence that we already have, instead of looking at everything outside of ourselves, looking for solutions, buying things, you know, whatever. And that's all great, that's all fine, you know, nothing, you know, there's nothing inherently wrong about um seeking pleasure outside of oneself, but then you're missing completely the picture. I mean, I feel that that is so much of what we are looking for uh, as humanity, looking for that sense of peace, looking for that sense of satisfaction, that sense of belonging, that sense of contentment and fulfillment. And it's actually right at our fingertips. And again, human design is wonderful, a wonderful tool, a wonderful modality to be able to explore that. And how exciting is it that, you know, it's actually getting, and I don't know, may be wrong, but I'm hoping that it'll get a lot more traction in these years that are coming up, because it does give so much wisdom. Um, and it's just a little bit less known that maybe some of the other
Mm.
wisdom traditions out there, like astrology or the I-Ching, and yet it actually brings so many of those concepts together in a way that is strangely agnostic and yet deeply mystical.
It's a great map. It's a very useful map. The map is not the territory. You still have to live your life.
Yes, of
But
course.
yeah, it's in that sense, it's provides, it provides I don't know, signposts and fingers pointing towards the moon. No, still have to watch the moon.
For sure. And again,
Yeah.
I mean, it's back to how with any modality, none of it is about, okay, well, let me just tell you your chart and now you can sit there and just do nothing. No, I mean, everything is about life, about living, about we are here to not conquer, but to live and to understand, to interact, to make mistakes,
Mm.
to grow, to evolve, right? So um and that's why, you know, it's so important not to disempower oneself by relying on necessarily anything outside of itself, including modalities like this, but to really embody that as another way that we can understand ourselves and another way to enlighten how we are actually being in the world. And for that, it's so tremendously useful. You mentioned before to me that there is also a very deep connection between human design and shamanism. I'm mentioning shamanism just because, you know, there has been such a resurgence of that, whether it's with or without plant medicine, ceremonial plant medicine. But could you talk about that for a bit as well?
Well, one of the aspects of shamanism is trance. No? So trance is an exercise that helps to get the mind out of the way, mm, and to have access to life's intelligence. So that's the first thing. Obviously, that's what human design tries to contribute to, not to trance, but to, you know, get the mind out of the way. And human design is laid out, as you can see in the background there, is laid out in a wheel. And all, like a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of shamanic traditions work or have knowledge of the medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel is about coming back in touch with awareness, with the intelligence of the body, with having generous and truthful relationships, and with embracing mysteries of life and death and creativity and self-expression, so to speak. So every direction of the wheel is dedicated to specific medicine, so to speak. No? In design, well, whenever you start any kind of ritual, what is it, plant medicine or other, and when it's facilitated by a shaman, there is like paying honors to the four directions. Then we pay honors to the sky, to the earth, and to the heart. So also there, it's the four directions are in the wheel. The sky is in the personality crystal, so it's in the consciousness that sits inside of the form. The form belongs to the earth, and the heart is where both integrate. So that lays out actually aspects of design. Now, every specific direction has specific themes. In order to awaken your consciousness, the main theme is to learn to feel. In order to trust the body, is not to have any judgments on the way it expresses itself. In order to deal with themes that have to do with what in design, what in shamanism is called a visionary, vision, we're having real vision, is that I'm not caught up in projecting anything on anybody else or defending myself on anybody else. If not, I don't see. So design lays out in a much more specific and almost like computer programming, very old models. It can go into much more detail about what those things are about. So it gives you the anchor of like, okay, this is what I'm doing here. This is what I'm going through. These are the experiences that help me in my journey of healing, so to speak, and coming closer to my essence, through working through the medicine wheel. So it's a modern way of laying out a very ancient knowledge into more detail, because our minds are much less surrendered than they used to be thousands of years ago when those things came out. We're not the same kind of human beings in that sense. We don't trust anymore. We don't pray anymore. Mm-hmm. Whatever gratefulness and all those kind of things, they are not so much part of people's lives anymore.
You mentioned a few times trust. This is something that comes up all the time. It is very hard to trust. It's something that's a challenge, and yet it's also where literally like all the treasure is when we're able to do that. And so much of that is connected to the heart. And it's very interesting in human design how the heart center is sort of is where those polarities can kind of come to kind of get into harmony in a sense. And it helps us navigate, and it's such an interesting intelligence, our heart intelligence, coming into that and recognizing and kind of getting to know our heart is actually one of the ways that and through that then also acknowledging our feelings and emotions is actually a way to start to trust again. And that's something that I would like to share. That's something that I've learned and am continuing to learn how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so to end, what are your favorite ways to connect actually?
I have many. Meditation, gratefulness, deeply recognizing I don't know anything, dance, painting, nature, gratefulness towards my parents, like honoring my ancestors, so to speak, entering into my body, like exploring my body, coming in touch with my inner child and my childlikeness, So those are some.
Fantastic. So for us to learn more about your work, Dirk, and how should we connect with you? Where do we find
I do readings. I teach some stuff on human design. All of that stuff is on my website. So that's dirknellens.com.
We'll put that in
But
the
in a
notes.
way, I'm also very open to work. Like I'm still very open to work together, to see what is possible together. What can we construct and build together?
Thank you so much again, Dirk, for being part
You're
of the
welcome.
show, for how things connect.
You're welcome.
All right.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.